So here are some thoughts on how clergy and PCCs might want to respond to all that's going on in the Church of England at the moment regarding the prayers of love and faith. Now, there's plenty, one could say, but the basic problem is this is where we find ourselves for the Orthodox half of the Church of England. The House of Bishops have led us into a place where there's been a de facto, in practice, change in doctrine. So the prayers of love and faith, they can already be used in existing services, and the aim is soon, sometime in 2025, that they can be used in a standalone service that will look very much like a wedding, to quote the Bishop of Bath and Wells, who does not think this should go ahead. And the aim as well by the House of Bishops is that sometime in 2025, clergy will be able to enter into same-sex marriages too. And despite the Archbishop of Canterbury, before his resignation, saying it was just his personal view, what he actually said in the interview to Alistair Campbell, he said this: what the Archbishop of York and I and the bishops, by a majority, by no means unanimous, have come to is to say that all sexual activity must be within a committed relationship, whether it is straight or gay. So what we have is a de facto change in doctrine led by a majority of the House of Bishops. Now, there are three big problems with all this. First, there are the theological problems. It's teaching something different from what the Bible teaches, and in such a core, clear matter where we can't just agree to disagree. It's the doctrine of marriage that is there throughout Scripture, from Genesis to Revelation. It's a creation ordinance that marriage is between a man and a woman, and the only context for sexual activity. Second, there are procedural problems. It's been an abuse of process and power by the House of Bishops, pushing through an agenda, hiding important information, because the House of Bishops knows that if they follow due process for a change in doctrine, Canon B2, which needs a 2/3 majority, they would not be able to implement the changes that they desire. And then all that is leading to, thirdly, missional problems. This is causing a car crash to mission and evangelism in the church in this country, not least the fact that the pipeline of new vicars entering the church is currently decimated because no one wants to become vicar if they're not sure what the organisation believes in that they're joining. And so because of this de facto, in practice, attempt to have a new doctrine, the Alliance are beginning to set up a de facto parallel province within the Church of England. The Alliance, if you don't know, is simply a network of networks. It's all the orthodox networks in the Church of England across the evangelical spectrum, from conservative to charismatic, plus traditional Catholics. Over 2,300 clergy are signed up, with churches representing 42% of the Church of England's average Sunday attendance and 53% of all under 18-year-olds within the Church of England. And we're working closely with the Alliance-linked bishops. Now, some people have said, isn't this all a bit drastic? Isn't it a bit drastic to set up a de facto, in practice, parallel province? But the reality is it's the very opposite. It is only in response to this de facto change in doctrine that we're setting up a de facto parallel province. And some people are arguing that it is the Alliance that is looking to sort of create this big separation from the wider church. But the sad truth is it is the House of Bishops that are doing that, with their drive to move away from the traditional teaching of the church that has existed down the ages and across the globe. The Alliance is not proposing to leave the Church of England or the Anglican Communion. We wish to stay loyal to the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church throughout the world. We don't want to participate in a schismatic move that departs from the teaching that is received and upheld by the universal church, not only by the vast majority of the Anglican Communion, but also the Roman Catholic Church, the Orthodox churches, and the vast majority of other churches around the world. Rather, what's going on is the creation of the de facto parallel province is with the purpose of enabling people who might otherwise feel they're forced to leave the Church of England because of the changes, helping them to stay in it while we're in this limbo time when there is no settlement of a way forwards that everybody is happy with. The de facto parallel province is a temporary provision whilst we await a permanent solution that enables a settlement to be found that works for everyone. And at the moment, things are only set up so that the flourishing is only possible for those who support the proposed changes. And we're saying, please can we set things up in the Church of England so that those who simply want to hold to the faith that we've been entrusted with can flourish. So what can we do? What can we do as clergy? What can we do as PCCs to help with this? The first thing is let's continue proclaiming Jesus. Let's continue proclaiming Jesus in our churches. The whole purpose of the Alliance is about enabling the whole of the Church of England to flourish in our mission to reach this nation with the good news of Jesus. We are on a mission of love through word and action to a world that desperately needs to know the love of God. And that means we keep loving everyone, whatever their sexual orientation or theological beliefs. Everyone is welcome in our churches as we look to display radical Christian inclusion and radical Christian holiness. Now, of course, sometimes it is a challenge to hold those two together well. And of course, it is right to recognize the profound heartache that this whole debate causes everyone. It is so important that we desire for everyone in our churches to experience the joy of relationship, be that in friendships or in the church family or in marriage. But we also recognize that even the very best relationships will never completely fulfill us. And that is why we keep proclaiming Jesus above all, for it is in relationship with Jesus that one day all our relational longings will finally and fully be satisfied forever. But it is also right, as we continue proclaiming Jesus, it's also right to begin taking actions. To begin taking actions to help us move towards a permanent solution where the Orthodox half of the Church of England is also able to flourish. And that means as ministers and as PCCs putting facts on the ground that demonstrate the reality of this de facto parallel province. Now, individual church ministers, we can put facts on the ground, beyond just sort of choosing not to use the prayers of love and faith and beyond writing to your bishop, you can, just as an individual minister, you could request personal alternative spiritual oversight. You could even give your own financial giving via the Ephesian Fund. You could encourage the Alliance pre-ordination pipeline when it comes to you talking with anyone considering ordination in your church. But particularly as a whole PCC, there are three things that can be considered, and here they are. Number one, supporting your clergy in not using the prayers of love and faith. And that's not so much dependent on the theological views of the whole PCC, but it's rather mainly about the PCC's support for the integrity and conscience of their own clergy in their own parish. Clergy are under lots of pressure at the moment, so please do all you can to support them. And as a PCC, you could write to your bishop and affirm this support. Second thing that you could do as a PCC is request alternative spiritual oversight. And this isn't about disrespecting your diocesan bishop and their formal and legal role, including the safeguarding role. But it is about recognizing the need for your PCC, the whole PCC, the need for pastoral well-being. And that need to have additional support for them from someone who has similar concerns to them about the current direction of travel in the Church of England. And then the third thing as a PCC you could do is you could agree to give your parish share to the diocese via the Ephesian Fund. And for most churches, that is about ensuring that you can continue to contribute generously to your diocese rather than having to reduce your parish share because of an increasingly understandable desire by some in your church family not to give to the Church of England in this current contested climate. And perhaps most critically, let me just try and explain why these three actions are an important focus. And it relates to those three current concerns I mentioned: theological, procedural, and missional. First, in the face of the theological concerns, these actions begin to provide theological clarity. These actions, they are our initial means of clearly showing our belief in Scripture and in the received doctrine of the Church of England that marriage is between a husband and a wife and is the only God-ordained context for sexual intimacy. Second, in the face of those procedural concerns, these actions begin to protest procedural irregularity. So we're saying, House of Bishops, what are you doing? What are you doing ignoring the correct constitutional means of changing doctrine through Canon B2 that exists to protect the unity of the church? What are you doing causing such division through lack of transparency and abuse of power and disregarding due process? You wouldn't want us to run our PCCs like this, and we believe you should not run the national church like this. And then third, in the face of the missional concerns, these actions begin to protect missional integrity. They enable us, through this de facto parallel province, to focus on the mission that God has given us to reach this nation for Jesus Christ, saying we are passionate to serve the Church of England in mission and in evangelism, longing to see the next generations encounter Jesus through a confident, revitalized church. And so as I finish, here's the reality. Everybody would love a solution to the situation that we currently have, with the Church of England split right down the middle, divided, disunited, and seemingly never-endingly arguing. Somewhat change from what has been taught through history and across the ages, the revisionists. Some don't want change to God's teaching on marriage and sex and say it doesn't alter over time, the orthodox. Some aren't sure what they think. But all want to try and find a solution that works for everyone. And until the House of Bishops gets to that point of agreeing to do this, we need to keep putting facts on the ground regarding this de facto parallel province. This is the way forwards towards having an adequate, secure space in the Church of England where those with orthodox views can flourish alongside everybody else. So I want to encourage us all. Let's continue proclaiming Jesus, and let's begin to take those three actions as a PCC if we're able to. And alongside it, please, let's keep praying for unity in the Church of England, because it is so painful to see it so divided. Thank you for listening.